Welcome to the Sharon Decker podcast, where we share stories of who we love, what we love, and places we love in Western North Carolina. So settle in, listen up, and enjoy the show. I am so happy to introduce everybody to Kaleb Rathbone. Kaleb, thank you for joining us today on the podcast.
Absolutely. It's great to be here, Sharon.
So I'm excited about this because Kaleb is the Assistant Commissioner for Western North Carolina Agricultural Programs and Small Farms. He works with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, but your life revolves around farming and agriculture in Western North Carolina, Kaleb, and I'm so grateful for everything that you do. So, Kaleb, what we like to talk about on this podcast is kind of a snapshot of your story from Hurricane Helene. And then I want us to talk about where we are now and the progress that we've made. But tell me about your experience when the storm hit. You also are a farmer personally, so I'm sure there were implications for you as well. So tell us about it.
Sure. So like I said, I do farm. Grew up on a farm in Haywood County, and I live just outside of Waynesville. So, of course, was here during the storm, and like many people, communication was so disrupted during that event. It took a little time to kind of get our heads around what was actually going on and the extent of the circumstances that we found ourselves in. And so on my home farm, we had some damage from flooding, lost quite a bit of hay and some fields washed out, a lot of fences down. Fortunately, mine and my family's homes were not impacted, but just the damage on the farm, which, in relative terms was minor to what we saw in a lot of places. As far as from the department perspective, of course, we were tracking the storm as it was coming in into the area. We had resources staged, personnel ready to respond. We spun up our Ag Emergency Operations Center and was ready to deploy as soon as it was safe to do so. In the immediate aftermath, we had, through our EOC and working through state emergency management, we had teams of department personnel on the ground all over the region, helping really with anything that we could. And again, communication was such a challenge. Our people started out just helping what was right in front of them. I mean, what they saw. So it was everything from patching up temporary fences to moving livestock to safer areas, trying to help. Our Forest Service was very involved with saw crews, cutting out roads to the cell towers and so forth. But as the days went on, we had other operations set up as well, including we had an emergency, human emergency shelter at the WNC Ag Center where we housed, I can't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, somewhere around 300 people for an extended period of time.
Number. Right.
And so we had certainly a lot of moving parts going on in those few weeks after the storm.
One of the things I clearly remember, Kaleb, is that for us at Tryon, where we had done exactly what y'all had done, set up an emergency location and hospital and all those kinds of things, just getting resources into the region, was a call out from folks in the Department of Agriculture that said we need some place that folks can bring hay, feed, all types of agricultural supplies that we can stage kind of at the foot of the mountain. So then we can get it into the deeper part of the mountains and the areas that were more heavily damaged. And that call came very early because folks couldn't get to you in the further west locations, but they could still get to us. And so we started taking in any kind of products, fencing, all types of things that could be helpful, and used our covered arena to do that. But I was so impressed with how y'all had already, through your Emergency Operations Center, kind of planned the staging, not only of the receipt of the materials that were coming to us from all over the country, but how you would get it back into the mountains. I mean, there were some places where getting to the farms, you had to literally, get in there by animal or ATV or something because you couldn't get back into some of the areas where the entrances and access to the farms were. How do you coordinate that kind of massive effort?
So number one, unfortunately, we've had some experience. North Carolina, we routinely have hurricanes. Most of course, has happened in eastern North Carolina. So we've been through, similar circumstances in the east, and so was able to draw on some of that experience. But honestly, I think the big key to success through all of this was the relationships
Mm,
that we have throughout the
always.
industry. So agriculture in North Carolina, I think, is very unique. It's big and diverse. A lot of different players, a lot of entities involved in supporting from cooperative extension. So we've been through similar circumstances in the East. And so we have kind of some boilerplate process in place to be able to deploy. But on this event in particular, the relationships that we have across the agricultural industry with a lot of different individuals and groups and entities really allowed us to be able to implement the response in a strong way. So North Carolina Cooperative Extension,
Right.
that was huge. So we have an office in every county. Those county extension offices were engaged. Our research stations network, North Carolina Farm Bureau, nonprofits like WNC Communities,
Right.
all came together seamlessly. I can't think of a single thing that we asked for that we didn't get. That was available and within reason. It really was neighbors helping neighbors, stepping up in a big way to be able to do whatever we could to survive those first few weeks.
Right. I say that's been the secret to all of this is our helping each other and not waiting for help,
That's right.
but to jump in and get it done, which is how it really happens in Western North Carolina, whatever the issue. So, Caleb, let's talk a little bit about agriculture in Western North Carolina. I think a lot of folks were surprised when folks started talking about the impact of the storm, at how much impact there had been on agriculture. And really, that begins with not a real strong awareness of how important agriculture is to Western North Carolina's economy. Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So North Carolina as a whole, we are an ag state. So
Yes.
we're the third most agriculturally diverse state in the nation. Something over
Just
90
stop
different
and yeah,
commodities.
say that again because I think folks are surprised by that.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
3rd
So
most agricultural state. Wow.
the third most agriculturally diverse state. So you think about production in eastern North Carolina, where you've got
Yeah.
corn, cotton, and peanuts, all the way to the west, where it's everything from trout and Christmas trees to specialty crops. And so it's a dynamic industry, and it's incredibly important to our economy. So last year, the economic impact of our industry on the state's economy was over $111 billion. So it's by far the largest single industry in our state. And that looks different in eastern North Carolina than it does
Oh,
in the
yeah.
Piedmont and in the West. And here in western North Carolina, of course, the industry is shaped by our topography and our climate. And so we have, smaller fields, which leads to the need to produce higher value specialty crops.
Mhm.
So tomatoes and vegetables, cucumbers, Christmas trees, trout, as I mentioned. And so we're made up of a lot of small farms, overwhelmingly family operations. The livestock sector is incredibly important, of course, here in the mountains, where you have steep hillsides. It's perfect for grazing livestock, cattle, sheep, and so forth. And so that diversity across our terrain is our strong suit, but it also creates some challenges, right? So whenever you have losses, if you lose an acre of a high value crop, a farmer could easily be losing $30 or $40,000 of
Yeah.
value just from a single acre, and so the impacts are magnified on a personal level for these
Right.
small farms.
How are our farmers doing in the West?
So overall, recovery is moving along. I was in a meeting earlier in the week where we were comparing the recovery to building a house, right? So when you look at new construction, the framing and the windows and the roof goes up really quick whenever you're watching construction. Well, I think we've seen that part of the process. So the big
Right.
rocks have been moved, so to speak. And so a lot of the immediate recovery has taken place. But where it really slows down and takes time and money is when you get into the trim work and the plumbing and
Right.
the electrical on the
Right. The
house.
details.
That's what we're seeing on the farms. So it's the longer term, string bank repairs, other infrastructure issues, competition for contractors are very high because there's so
Yeah.
much work to be done. And so that's the kind of the physical limitations. You also have the financial issues. So commodity prices are generally low right now. And so
Right.
the year after the storm, so we went through the 25 season, we're seeing lower commodity prices and higher input prices. So the financial margins have not been there to help the farmers recover financially from those huge losses that we're seeing in 25. And so we do have some programs, some state and federal programs that we're working very diligently on to try to get financial resources into the hands of these farmers that had the
Right.
losses.
I know you've made several $100 million in grants to farmers across Western North Carolina, and there's more to come. I think we're still waiting on some of the federal funds that have been committed that have not yet reached North Carolina. And I know last week you just announced another 7.6 million in Western North Carolina farmers and growers a grants program. Tell me a little bit about that. I think that's really to add some values around product processing and that type of thing to support the growers. Is that right?
That's right. So there's several different programs that are at play right now. The big ones are the disaster funds.
Yeah.
So the General Assembly in March of last year, in March of 25, allocated just under 450 million total for ag relief funds that are being administered by the North Carolina Department of Ag. Part of that was for statewide programs. The bulk of it is for the Helene affected counties.
Right.
So to date, we've put out right around $280 million
Okay.
that are direct payments to farmers who have had losses in North Carolina due to the production issues and disasters in 2024. Money continues to go out every day. So the first step of that program was to make payments for crop loss. Those payments are largely complete. The next phase is on the infrastructure damage. We are making those payments. I think about $4 million hit mailboxes last week. And that's going to continue weekly as we do verifications and
Good.
complete those applications. In addition to the state money, we have a commitment from USDA for an additional $221 million in a disaster block grant. We're in the process of negotiating the work plan with USDA. It's been a
Right.
long process. We're hoping
Yes.
that we're
Very
really
slow.
close
Too
to the
slow,
end of
right?
that.
Yes.
And so as soon as we get the green light from USDA, we have applications ready to go that farmers will be able to apply for to take advantage of that pool of money as well. And we've been very intentional through the process to design these programs in a way where we'll be able to utilize the federal funds for areas of loss that weren't eligible for the state program and vice versa, so that we'll be able to get as much bang for our buck out of the total funds. So, we're working on that, moving as quickly as we possibly can, because again, as I mentioned earlier, the financial impact to these individual small businesses, these family farms, is real and cannot
Yeah.
be overstated. I mean, these folks are hurting and
Yeah.
need the money, and so we're very grateful that we're in a position to be able to help. In addition to that, you mentioned the $7.5 million that we
Yep.
put out just a couple of weeks ago. So that was through a program to help expand. That one was specifically for controlled atmosphere storage
Okay.
for commodities grown in the disaster declared counties.
So that would
Apples,
be
of
like
course.
for apples, cool storage, for
Apples.
example, meat.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Apples are the big one.
Yeah.
So the market for apples has changed over the last few years, and so having on-farm storage, long-term
Yeah.
storage for those commodities are key to profitability for those operations. And so
Yeah.
we're very excited to see the
Good.
payoff on those cost share programs in the future.
And I know there's an awful lot more that we can do to get processing and manufacturing closer to our farmers so that you have shorter distance for fresh food to travel before it's processed, canned, frozen, that type of thing. And I know there are a lot of folks who are working to try to make more of that happen in our state. We appreciate all that you're doing in that regard. I don't know that we can ever do enough, Caleb, to encourage folks to buy from local farmers, and whether it's dairy product or meats or poultry or fresh fruits and vegetables of any type. There's hardly anything, I guess, except maybe citrus that you can't find growing somewhere in Western North Carolina, right?
That's right. That's right. There's an abundance of product that's
Yeah,
grown
it
right here,
really
and
is.
I think
Yeah.
the key for that local market is for consumers to be intentional about their buying choices.
Yes.
So
Yes.
oftentimes, well, I'm gonna say every time the quality is gonna be better from Western North Carolina,
I would
but the
agree.
quality's there, and
Yeah.
product availability. It's just a purchasing decision, right? So
Right.
when you're in the grocery store, being intentional about picking up the product that came from an apple farm in Henderson County instead of
Right.
somewhere in Washington State,
Right.
a lot of times they look just alike, but I think
That's right.
asking consumers to be intentional about their purchasing decisions, that makes a huge difference to these
Right.
farms in this area on their bottom line.
Right. I think the other things we can encourage folks as they talk with their legislators to encourage the continuation of fresh foods into our schools, fresh foods into our hospitals, so that people are getting the highest quality, locally grown items to be sure they get the nutrients and vitamins that they need. And I encourage folks to go to their local farmers market. I still have friends who've never been to a local farmers market, and I can imagine why you wouldn't do that. Maybe it takes a little extra time, a Saturday morning, a couple of hours, but it's such a joy to meet the people who actually grow our food.
That's right, and I happen to be at the WNC Farmers Market today, which is one of our 4 state-operated farmers markets across the state, and
Right.
and I think it would surprise a lot of people to learn of the volume of product that moves through this market. I mean, I think we were looking at the numbers earlier. Last year, we had roughly $30 million worth of products move through this market, local crops that are brought here to sale and available in abundance. A lot of
Wow.
times you can get it cheaper here and fresher products. So
At
absolutely
the
take
Western North
advantage of.
Carolina's farmer market, right?
That's right. That's
And
right.
that's in Asheville, easy to find. It's marked on both 26 and 40. So
That's
if you're
correct.
not from Asheville, you can come into town and enjoy it. And of course, I enjoy the local market here in Polk County. There's one in Rutherford County, very close to me. And I always stop by the honest, there's still roadside kinds of markets all across Western North Carolina where you play the honor system, right? And pick up your fresh vegetables and leave your money there.
And I used to on my farm, I used to be in the strawberry business. I grew
Uh-huh.
strawberries for several years, and we would sell any way we could, set up a
Yeah.
tent in the parking lot somewhere, or the tailgate
Yeah.
markets, some here at the Asheville
Right.
Farmers Market, and those sales that we were able to make from the tailgate of a truck truly allowed us to be able to operate as a family farm. And
Yes.
so don't underestimate the value that you
Absolutely.
can have on a local farm by
Yeah.
making those purchases.
So spring's coming, Caleb. What are going to be the first products that we'll see coming out of Western North Carolina this spring as it warms up?
So early on, so I just mentioned strawberries. So I got to keep
Yeah.
our strawberry guys in mind. So those will be coming out, you know, early May from Western
Right.
North Carolina. From
Right.
the Piedmont a little bit earlier than that, but usually get kicked off with strawberries. Before that, though, we have a huge green industry here in Western North Carolina as far as landscaping and garden plants. So, as soon as the threat of frost is passed, opportunities to purchase local plants for your gardens and so forth. But we'll start with strawberries and then roll into peaches and then your vegetables and going into the summer, and then of course apples as we get into the fall.
Yeah.
So
And don't forget those blueberries. That's become a big crop here in the foothills. I enjoy a nearby vineyard Over Mountain Vineyard that also grows blueberries. And so that's one of the first places we hit as it
that's
gets warm
right.
in early summer. So mention that right quickly, Caleb. We're about out of time, but vineyards have been an increasing agricultural activity in Western North Carolina. And it's not new. At turn of the century, I've read a couple of things that the foothills of Western North Carolina grew more grapes for wine than did the state of New York. But then there was that thing called Prohibition. And so a lot of folks in North Carolina, I won't say everybody, but most folks in North Carolina got out of wine production. But we're back in it in a big way. We've got two viticultural regions now, right? One in the Henderson County area and now one here in the foothills. Talk about how important that is to the agricultural economy in Western North Carolina.
Absolutely. So number one, it's an incredibly high quality product.
Yes.
And so it's a way to add value to a crop that's grown. So the grapes that are grown in this area, value added, turning it into wine. And so you have the value add from the product itself, but then additionally the agritourism piece of it. And so
Right.
it's a fun place to go, relax, be able to enjoy some local products. And so any of those value added and agritourism type opportunities is a way to generate additional revenue for the farm. And
Right.
be able to keep the land in production, and it's a great local product for
Yeah.
folks to enjoy.
And my understanding is all of our vineyards in Western North Carolina are family owned and operated. And so once again, it just underscores how much family operations, small agricultural business, how important it is to Western North Carolina's economy. We need to be doing everything we can to support it. So I love the slogan that North Carolina agriculture uses. It's got to be NC. And so that's what I say when I go to the grocery store. It's what I say at the farmer's market. It's got to be NC. So look for the label, ask the farmer, ask the folks in your produce department, I want some North Carolina product. Where is it? And we encourage all of you to buy it. Or any last words you'd share with our listeners today?
So again, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to keep agriculture in the conversation as we continue recovery here in Western North Carolina. And so, again, it's the backbone of the economy. And I think
Yes.
as you look at the future of Western North Carolina, what our region will look like in 10 years, 20 years from now, if we don't keep family farms productive and profitable, it will completely change
Yes.
how this area looks. And so it's important to our region, it's important to our economy, but it's also important to these individual families who are operating businesses, take a risk every day to make sure that we have fresh and nutritious food available within the region. And so, again, I would ask people to be about supporting these operations here in this part of the state.
Yeah, it's critical to Western North Carolina's economy. And as we look at the development of a long-term plan for recovery, the 5-10-year time frame, which is really what it takes to get beyond these kinds of disasters, agriculture is in the front of our minds and in the front of our planning because it is such an important part of our culture. We want this place to stay green. And one of the ways that we can do it, the beautiful environment that we experience here, is by supporting our local farmers. Thanks for what you do every day to ensure that our farmers are taken care of. Continue to let us know the ways that we can help these farmers as they continue to recover and get all of their crops back in the ground and growing for us again. Kaleb, thanks for all you do every day.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us this week for the Sharon Decker podcast, where, once again, we've shared what we love, where we love, and the people we love in Western North Carolina. Join us next week, too. And in the meantime, you'll find us at SharonDecker.com or on Instagram at TheSharonDecker.